Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time I want to talk about the unannounced Nintendo games that are left for the second half of 2022. We pretty much have a strong understanding of what's happening in the first half of the year, but the second half of the year has quite a bit of flux. Sure, there's a number of games that have already been confirmed for 2022, but there's probably going to be a few more. What will those games be? Well, in this video, that's what we're going to be speculating on. But before we jump into things, let me first very quickly talk about my social media. You may see a few different things here on screen. You can check that all out. It is linked in the description below. And of course, if you like what you're seeing here, you can subscribe or perhaps even consider joining as a member. So we don't really have a good understanding of what's happening between July and December, but here are some assumptions that I think most people will agree with. Because Splatoon 3 has not been confirmed for a particular date yet, and we have a number of games coming out all the way leading up until June, because Splatoon 3 has that summer release timing, it's probably coming out at the very earliest, July. And assuming there aren't any delays, at some point or another, we're going to be seeing the release for Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope, Bayonetta 3, the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. All of those games on top of Splatoon 3 are already confirmed for the second half of the year. And Xenoblade in particular already has that September time slot. So with all those major games, half of them being fully open world games, are we really getting anything else published by Nintendo in the second half of the year? Some people might even be arguing that some of those games have to get delayed, that they have to be slid out. And it is possible. But until confirmed otherwise, I'm going to assume that the information Nintendo has given us is going to hold true. If we can't trust Nintendo, then who can we trust? Maybe no one. But the point is, for now, for the sake of argument, let's assume nothing is getting delayed because there hasn't been any official information suggesting that there will be delays. If that holds true, is there anything else to be coming out in the second half of the year? And I think the answer, regardless actually, is an emphatic yes. Why? Well, firstly, the second half of pretty much every single year during the Switch era, not pretty much every single year, is always more dense than the first half of the year. And then when we take a look at the first half of this year, there are a number of months that have multiple Nintendo releases coming out in the same month. For example, this very month right here, Triangle Strategy and Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And on top of that, we just got the release for the first wave of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass DLC. So there's content coming here, and this isn't the only month that's supposed to have more than one major release. Next month, April, while Advance Wars was delayed, it was initially slated for April and delayed because of the whole situation regarding the wars and such, and I hope everything works out there. But yes, it was supposed to come out then alongside Nintendo Switch Sports. And then in June, we're getting Mario Strikers, Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. Point is, this first half of the year, multiple months with multiple Nintendo games, and there's a lot of games coming out in the first half of the year. And the historical precedent would suggest that the second half of the year will be denser because that's how it always has been. And considering the amount of games we already know about for the second half of 2022, it's looking pretty packed, but there's probably going to be a few more announcements. So then, that brings me to the bulk of this discussion. What will be those announcements? I don't know. Obviously, we are speculating on that. But there's one in particular of all the possibilities that I feel is the most likely to be announced and to be coming out for the second half of 2022. And that's the rumored Metroid Prime Remaster or Remake. It's a weird definition, remaster, remake, but we've talked about that ad nauseum already. Anyway, some sort of enhanced repurposing of Metroid Prime supposedly is coming out to celebrate the 20th anniversary for Metroid Prime, and it makes sense because we are on the heels of the success of Metroid Dread. It's doing pretty good. We got the free DLC, so it's seeming like everything's building up for a major Metroid sort of reveal at E3, and it comes out at the second half of this year, and then hopefully Prime 4 has a big focus the year after, 2023, as perhaps suggested by the recent banner update on Retro Studios' page of what appears to be the first official concept art for Prime 4. Maybe. Either way though, there's a number of people who are industry insiders who have pretty good track records who have been talking about this game coming out this year. Emily Rogers, Nate DeHate, Jeff Grubb, the list goes on. So, do I think Metroid Prime Remake is coming out in the second half of this year? I think there's a pretty good chance. I think at least at one point they were planning for it to come out this year, and assuming there aren't any delays, I think it could make it out for this year. Yes, there are some major releases, but Metroid Prime, especially the original Metroid Prime, wasn't that long of a game. You could beat it in about 15 to 20 hours. So if it's just remade, which could still be really nice, it may be still considered a major release, but I could see it coming out in the same month as, say, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in September, separated by a week or two. So I can easily see Metroid getting slotted into the second half of the year, not too much of a stretch there. But something you may notice about the majority of the games that we have slated for 2022, Bayonetta, Zelda, Xenoblade, Metroid, they're predominantly single-player experiences. Splatoon's the big exception, and Pokemon is sort of a hybrid of both. But ultimately the point I'm getting at here is that I think Nintendo may want to have a bit of variety here. We have a lot of big open world action and adventure games, which are really awesome. They're my favorite genre, but I think we need to have a little bit more of something else. So it gets me thinking, what sort of games that could be ready or near ready that Nintendo could put out? Something that comes to mind would maybe be something by the Nintendo EPD group that's behind both Mario Kart and ARMS. So right now we are getting the Booster Course Pass DLC, and that will be coming out throughout this year and next year. So that sort of makes up a bit of that already with that multiplayer experience, that new content there. But I feel like there's got to be something else, and that team is not working on this Mario Kart DLC. They've been working on something else this entire time. It might just be Mario Kart 10, and that'll come out when it's ready, probably a few years from now. But it also could be something entirely different. We haven't seen anything new for them since 2017. So even if they are working on Mario Kart 10 now, and that comes out 2 or 3 years from now, they had to have been working on something else as well. What could that be? Potentially it could be a big multiplayer game, considering that they made both Mario Kart and ARMS. That seems like a pretty good pedigree to make another brilliant multiplayer game. Perhaps they've been behind something, perhaps that could be announced for this year, and it could be fitted into the second half of 2022. That is a possibility. But another thing to consider here is that they probably could make a pretty substantial, significant game. Maybe it would be saved for next year. Also a possibility. So it's hard to say for sure what they're doing. It's hard to say for sure if what they're doing is coming out this year, but it's definitely a possibility. Another thing that people have been bringing up is perhaps 3D Mario. The Mario movie is coming out this holiday. Maybe we're getting a new 3D Mario to coincide with the movie. That does seem to make sense. So maybe that is in the cards, but I don't think it is, not for this year. I think with Mario Odyssey and then with Bowser's Fury, I think that's probably enough 3D Mario for the near future. Perhaps there's a 3D Mario that is being put together, but considering that Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out this year, and the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I'm just not expecting another 3D Mario. If anything, I could see Nintendo coming out with a 3D Mario perhaps next year at the end of the year as the big holiday game for 2023, and that's still relatively close to the release of the movie. Perhaps at that point there'll be the digital release out there, and it'll still benefit from that big marketing boost of the movie. Typically, we see Nintendo take advantage of the marketing boost from their mobile games by releasing their major IP afterwards. So I feel like with the movie, that strategy would probably be similar. So I'm not expecting a 3D Mario this year, and I'm not expecting a new Mario Kart this year. That's not happening. But maybe we could see something a little bit smaller. Something smaller to fit in between these big games. So something that's a little smaller but also huge sales potential would be a brand new 2D Mario. Not saying it's coming out this year, I could also see that maybe coming out next year, but I do think if Nintendo really wanted to, they could fit it in there. It could make sense. It could come out in between two major games month by month. Definitely in the cards, I would say. And it's been a long time since we've had an actual new 2D Mario. At some point or another, I think it should happen. And considering that the Mario movie is around the corner, maybe Nintendo wants to have something Mario ready for this year. Of course, there is Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, but I'm not even sure Nintendo's entirely publishing that. That seems to be more of an Ubisoft thing. and there are rumors of it getting delayed. Not saying it will get delayed, but there are rumors. So with those things in mind, perhaps Nintendo wants something else Mario to come out this year. We pretty much have something Mario come out every year. Granted, we are getting Mario Strikers this summer, and Mario Kart DLC is coming out throughout the year, and we still may get Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, so maybe that is enough Mario. But it is something else that Nintendo could throw out for the second half of the year. Something that's been in development for a long time that Nintendo could conceivably fit into this year is Pikmin 4. Been in development for a very long time, probably restarted once or twice, and I feel like it's one of those games that is likely near completion, and Nintendo's simply waiting for the right time to come out with it. If we take into consideration that in 2020 we got Pikmin 3 Deluxe, and in the Nintendo Universal Park they have Pikmin throughout, and it's the only other non-Mario character that is shown in the park so far, and that we also just got the Pikmin mobile game not too long ago, it does seem like Nintendo has a marketing plan for Pikmin, and I do feel like it is building up to something, which I do believe will be Pikmin 4. The question simply is that a this year thing, or will it be a next year thing? I do consider Pikmin to be more of the niche style of games, so, you know, I could see that being something that could be fitted into the second half of the year. And on the note of niche, that's what I sort of think is what we're looking at here in terms of games we don't know about that could be fitted into the second half of the year. Games that aren't like giant open world adventure games, but are actually just really interesting styles of game that we don't have that much of, at least from Nintendo. So for example, we just got F-Zero X added to the N64 online membership, and it's awesome. But what if this is kind of like meant to whet our appetite for an actual F-Zero to come out at the end of this year? Probably not, or at least it's probably not an indicator that we are, because it's just one of those good N64 games that we're bound to get at some point. But what if we did get a new F-Zero at the end of this year? It's not out of the question. We have Mario Kart as the big Nintendo racer, but there are a whole bunch of other things that are different styles of racing that Nintendo could give us. If not F-Zero, how about Wave Race, for example? And then going beyond racing, what if we were to get a new Star Fox game? It doesn't have to be a giant open world space adventure. It could be something a bit more on the smaller side, maybe more like an online sort of multiplayer shooter, for example, something along the lines of Battlefront, but Star Fox style. That could be pretty cool as well. Another option would be the rumored Donkey Kong game. And I've been talking about the Donkey Kong game maybe coming out next year, but it could come out this year. If it's a 2D side-scrolling Donkey Kong adventure, that could be a really fun sort of experience that would be different from the other things we're getting in the second half of the year. And if it has co-op involved as well, then that could also help to differentiate it a little bit from the other big single-player adventures that are coming out in the second half of this year. So those are just some of the possibilities of games that we could see be announced at this year's E3, and they could come out in the second half of the year. More niche titles from Nintendo, like Donkey Kong and Pikmin. And of course, there's always the possibility of a new IP. I don't know what that is, because it's something that hasn't been announced yet, ever. So we'll see, but it's certainly possible. And I'm sure there will be other third-party games coming out throughout the year as well. But we'll see what Nintendo has to announce come this E3. But what do you guys think that could be? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is Unannounced Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.